So networking's interesting in the Christian realm.
Very interesting.
You either get people who are like wanting to be Christian successors because they think it's an easy playground,
Yeah.
or you go so far the other spectrum where people don't want, I guess they're either like they don't want to get branded something because they're coming in because this is
they don't want to be a groupie or like something, or even hey, they're chasing that person, or they're trying to be like that person, to steal that person's influence.
But they're treating Christianity like it's a religion.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that in my faith. Like I'll do that in work, but it's like if we're Christians all day, every day, you need to find opportunities where you best fit in.
Right. Yep.
And I've been around a group of people where they've pulled me aside and like, hey, be careful. That person's definitely an opportunist. They don't know when to stop talking.
Yeah.
And then in the same group, there's a couple of people that they're like, do they talk? And then they're like, well, I didn't want to be known as an opportunist. And we have so-and-so, they're doing all the talking for us. And there's never a healthy balance. It's either A or B.
Yep.
And in your world, how do you get gigs?
If you don't talk, I mean, you know, you can advertise all you want,
right?
But in this, I mean, in this industry, like relationships,
industry in the
everything.
sense, like people need to know, like doing videography, editing,
everything
marketing.
like that. Yep.
They need to know what you do. You're not just the camera guy.
Yeah, I mean, relationships, everything, because it's great that because now, you know, social media can help you. You know, you look good on social media, people. But here's the truth: is a lot of the people that are blowing up right now, they got known because of a relationship.
Right.
So like even like I think I looked at like a Charlemagne, his videographer now is like blowing up. And it's because of a relationship he had with Charlemagne.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good videographer, and he said, and I was just listening to a quick clip of it, and he was talking about it, and he said, you know, nobody was caring about like what he was doing until Charlemagne attached himself to him, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, your videography is incredible, and it's like literally because of a relationship,
right?
His work got stamped. He was, and sure, he was growing and learning and everything, but at the same time, it's like he had someone stamp him, so now he's good,
right?
And so it's because of a relationship he had that he had access to notoriety now, you know. And so I think a lot of times, if you don't have that in that industry, and even in the church world too, like, you know, a lot of times like people aren't going to trust like you to work with their staff, their congregation, unless they have a relationship, unless they know of you or somebody.
Well, go step speaking.
Yeah,
the mic is sacred because what are you going to say? What is your theology?
Right.
There's limited space, and then people are always like, "Oh, they didn't ask me to." Have you made a relationship?
Yeah.
And it's not like you make the relationship so you can do that.
No.
But they're not going to come just put the hand on you and be like. Next Wednesday,
they have a culture to protect.
Right.
They have a culture to make sure like they're not bringing someone in that's going to wreck their Sunday, you know,
right.
And then the pastor have to try to rectify it, or you go in and you speak to their core volunteers and you say a bunch of wild stuff. And then it's like, they have to pick up the pieces. And so it's like through relationship, it's like, oh yeah, this person's really good because they did this, and that. And the person's like, okay, great. And then you get brought in.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of times we try, you know, relying on like, oh, God will just give us the opportunity.
Right.
And it's like, yes, he did. He gave you a mouth. He gave you ears. He gave you a brain. That's your opportunity.
So you've I hate to say use the word been around, but you have jumped into a lot of different buckets, not just in the like AG, not just Church of God.
Everywhere.
Like you've had a wide spectrum of, and it has to do to people knowing your work.
Yep.
You either making relationship, kind of just cultivating, and then getting your word out. Like this is what I do, and being available.
Yeah. Being consistent too is what helps.
Yeah, that's a whole.
Yeah.
Just actually delivering to what you say you can deliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember we're at a conference. There's a new guy in, and everyone can't stand him. He's 23, 24.
Yep.
Word on the street was super arrogant, didn't like anybody.
Yep.
You know, he was pushy. So there was this like what was being put off as like stigma.
Oh.
And so, you know, if you've been in the church world, there's a green room. There's people that can get in there and there's people that can't get in there, you know, sadly. And so I wanted to get my food. We didn't have you can't go in there, but we didn't have the full blown like, so I go to sit down and here's this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man. And I just come right out. I go, so I heard people don't like you. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. Everyone's telling me they don't like you. why don't they like you? He goes, I don't know. I didn't know they thought that way. I was like, yeah, I thought I should just let you know that.
Wow.
And so it comes out like Rodrigo now is my best buddy. We're sitting in San Antonio sharing life stories, find out that like, he's this huge wrestler fan, did a couple of documentaries with the $1 Million Man. Wow. You know, we just start like creating this relationship all out of like, everyone was afraid, didn't like him.
Wow.
And I just walked up and was like, hey man, what's going on? Yeah. All the seats are taken. Next thing you know, everyone's at our table. Yeah. It's the life of the party. And I bring that up because in the Bible, Joseph's in prison.
Right.
He overhears an issue that the Pharaoh can't get an answer to his dream. He butts into the conversation and says, I can answer it. Yeah. Remember me. Yeah. If he doesn't do that, how does he get out? And there's this weird stigma that, well, they weren't talking to me. Right. I don't want to butt in. I don't want to like put my 2 cents in. Yeah. There's a tactful way. We're not saying you run into people's conversations, but if you're not putting an ear out to say, hey, I could solve that problem or I could help, they'll never know. And then you have a group of people who are like, well, they didn't choose me. They didn't even know you had that talent. Yeah. 100%. How many times have you come across somebody and they're like, yeah, I know how to draw or I know how to do this. And you're like, where have you been and why aren't you speaking up?
Yeah, there was someone that was volunteering with me. And one day I found out that they had went to all these classes and had all this school and all this production experience. And they hadn't had it in the specific area that they were serving in, but they had all this other, like their knowledge was way beyond what I realized. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? Like, how am I just now figuring out? Because like I would have better used you a year ago and put you in a better position than you are now. Right. Because I'm thinking I'm having to train someone who's, you know, an infant in all this. Right. And it's like, oh yeah, no, like I understand this, that. And you're like, are you kidding me? And it's just because they didn't feel like they'd say anything. Right. It's just like, okay, like that's fine. Like it is what it is. But like, I think sometimes it's like a false humility thing of not saying what you do. And it's like, you know, it's like, I'll say it all the time. It's like, if you're a professional and you're paid to be a professional and you get a paycheck and you're hired by certain people, then you are a professional. Correct. Because there's people that only hire professionals. And if you receive a check from them, then you are a professional.
So how about going a step farther that maybe the person you meet, they know somebody that needs. So when I met Rodrigo, we create this friendship. He gets married. We have a great friendship, but I get to meet his prophet, who is best friends with now our pastor. Yeah. And if I didn't meet Rodrigo, I don't meet Prophet Kevin, who then helps move my whole life to West Virginia. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't get opportunities like that. You're always, you know, they always say you're one relationship away from a breakthrough. Yeah. But we're always afraid of putting ourselves out there, of rejection, not knowing, maybe not being the smartest one in the room. So that now we're like going back into like high school where like you're a freshman hanging out with the seniors. And it's like, we got to speak up. We got to like network tactfully. Yeah. But be able to let people know what we can do, what we can offer. And if they don't choose you, that's fine. But you don't know who they know that can help you get going with something.
Yeah, and I think even, you know, so we're looking at it from the sense of like a career-wise, right? Right. But then I'm even looking at it from the sense of like relational, personal side. Right. Like the things that you need in people that you view highly, but you know, they're just people, right? They're just normal people. They're not like, I think a lot of times, especially, and we're kind of talking on the church side of this. And so I'll say it like this. My biggest problem with the church mentality when it comes to the outside people is we treat people like celebrities. We treat people like, you know, they're Hollywood. And, you know, it's like, I get there are some people in the Christian realm that are, you know, Hollywood, and that is a bad thing. But the problem is that sometimes people project onto certain people that they are Hollywood, right? And then it removes your ability to receive from them, even just relationally.
Well, that's perfect because I hear all the time, well, he didn't say hi to me. Yeah. Did you say hi to him? Yeah. Well, no. It's his job to pick you out of a crowd of 600 people and walk up and say hi to you. Yeah. What's your name? I hear it all the time that like, well, they didn't say hi to me. Yeah. Are you shown friendly?
Yeah. It's just, it's like, or like they didn't start the conversation. You're like, bro, they just got done speaking for 3.5 hours. Like, what do you want them? Like, what do you want them to do? They got off a plane, go in the green room. They're talking to people. Then they get on a stage. It's like, they'll talk to you, but they're not going to initiate conversation. They don't know you. Right. You know them more than they, and it's kind of funny because it's like, this is the problem. People see themselves at disadvantages and when they're talking to people that like say like are known through social media or known through like you've seen their videos or whatever, you're at more of an advantage for them because you know more about them than they know
Right.
about you.
So true.
And so like you can say, hey, you know, I remember the time you talking about the story. Oh yeah, well, how about this? Oh yeah, like because there's people I've met, and I'm like, oh, I know so and so, and they're like, oh yeah, like, and it's like you have the upper hand in the conversation with people
Correct.
that you know of because they don't know of you,
Right.
and so you can interject yourself, and there's all kinds of ways to construct conversations that are like almost bring familiarity with somebody that doesn't know you.
Correct.
And so I think that's how I've always looked at it, is like I'm trying to relate to somebody. I'm not trying to have a conversation. I'm trying to relate, and then relationship will come.
Right.
Because if I can relate to you, I can have a relationship with
Right.
you.
You're sifting for somewhere to start a conversation
Yeah.
of common ground. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's a lost art with texting,
Oh,
with people just DMing. There's no like, how do I start the relationship?
Right,
Where does
yeah.
it go? And it's super awkward for people who are dealing with rejection,
Yeah.
fear of
Yeah.
being rejected, fear of man, that it
Yeah.
like keeps them from participating.
Yeah. It really
And
does.
it's like, well, you didn't walk up and be like, hey, I want to edit your next video. It's like, no, you didn't say that.
No.
It's that they
Yeah.
found a service and eventually they called when it was the time. But if they didn't know what you did,
Yeah.
how would they
Yeah. And
know? And there's just this group of Christians who are like feeling like God forgot about them.
yeah.
They're not worthy. And it's like, no, they don't know. People don't know in the circle. God's trying to do something with you, but you're
Right.
too quiet. You're
Yeah.
afraid.
And the other thing too is sometimes like it's not even about the like you bringing up who or what you do to the person.
Mhm.
It's you having a conversation and then you trusting that like you have made a good impression on the people around you, that maybe they have heard of you. Because I've been in situations and talking to people and they're like, oh, you're so and so, and you're like, yeah, and somebody had talked to them about me. And I didn't bring anything up. It was, you know, my leadership or somebody
Right.
had said something. They're like, oh, you do this? And it's like, oh yeah, I do. And like, let them bring it up sometimes.
Right.
And it's like, it just depends. Like it's all dynamic, but at the same time, I think what we're trying to get across, kind of what you're trying to get across is like being open to those conversations and not
Yes.
closing them off. Because then I get like, I've been in rooms with people that you know, hey, how you doing? Like, I don't have deep conversations with because
Right.
I'm like, you know, it's just not the time, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
but I think understanding that, like, if you're the type of person that every single time is not the time, you're the problem.
Exactly.
If every time you're in a room
Exactly.
and it's never the time,
Right.
then you're
Yes.
you've got to fix yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest thing is like it's never always landing on heads.
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
you flip a coin and it's like, do I talk to this person? Do I talk? And you flip it, it's like it's not always going to land on heads. It may 90% of the time.
But it has to be a spot where we're making an effort. And that's
Right.
why I love that spot where Joseph is
Right.
in prison. They're all in prison.
Yep.
We all hear shop talk. There's somebody
Yeah.
talking. You've got to find a time to interject
Yep.
an ability, a desire, a concerning word.
Yeah.
But so many times we're so afraid of what people think, the rejection, that we're rejecting God's plan because it didn't even materialize right then
Yeah.
and there.
Right.
They got called up. He got forgotten about. And then when the time was needed,
Yeah.
oh, I remember this guy.
And you know, it's like what you said. Had he not said anything, now how many years, how many decades are going to go by
Right.
before his chance? Will he ever get another chance?
Right, right.
You know, it's like, will someone of that stature ever get? Because the thing is that someone that had proximity got thrown in the same room as him,
Right.
and he was in there for the wrong reason. Like he's not the guy. Like if you look, it's like he's not the guy that you want. The guy that he overheard that conversation from, he's in there for a reason.
Exactly.
He's in jail for a reason.
Right.
And it's like, it's not that he needed to talk to that guy. He needed that guy's proximity.
Exactly.
And so it's like that guy didn't really have anything to do with what he was after. He was after the proximity.
Yeah.
So I think that's sometimes how we have to view it is like, hey, you know, and the other side of things too is like, and this is kind of like, but like there's some relationships that with people that like you're not going to love to have. And you used to believe like, okay, like I'm going to talk to this person.
Yes.
And I don't agree with everything this person believes or
No.
everything this person does, but I'm going to have a relationship with this person and see where it goes. Like I'm not trying to be this person's like, you know, best friend, but at the same time, I'm trying to be an acquaintance. I'm trying to be
Right.
somebody that, hey, maybe God can use me in this person's life, or maybe that God's design is that relationship is to further me, not that person. And so it's
Mhm.
like we have to look at it from the sense of like, hey, God, whatever your will is in this situation with this person, that it'll be. And I'm not going to try to like make something happen that's
Right.
not, you know.
And it's a very interesting dynamic, but I really want to press, take the opportunities God's put inside of you, and maybe you like, I don't know anybody, maybe I
Yeah.
don't have an opportunity to network. Well, then that's like you were saying, that's number one red flag
Yeah.
is get around people like-minded
Yeah.
where opportunities can start coming. Join a creative group, go to church,
Mhm.
and maybe you're the solution to their problem.
Yeah.
And then that also gets you involved in using your giftings. But so many times we're waiting to get picked, and it's not
Yeah.
an NFL draft. It's
No.
not where they know your talent.
Yeah.
They've done research.
Yeah.
If they don't know.
Yeah.
So they need to get to know
Yeah.
you.
You're the only one with the knowledge. You have to
Right.
act on
And
it.
and we have to forget that they haven't lived in our shoes
Right.
24 hours a day, 7 days a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So we need to let them know our abilities. And if they don't choose you, that's fine.
Yeah.
That just means God is moving you into another sphere. I know with my wife and I, she was like, I want to get involved in this one department. They never chose us. And I'm like, that's okay because there's something else God's needing us
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Don't feel rejected
Yeah.
to all things now.
Yeah.
And so it's again,
100%.
you just keep sifting that gold. There's a lot
Yeah.
of dirt that's got to go through the plate
So
and a
much.
lot of water to find that little speck of gold. But
Yeah.
once you do, there's value.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of times too, you know, I think we expect things to explode immediately,
Right.
and you know, I look at even one of the most important kind of connections when I look at my journey happened, and it was literally so insignificant, and even in the sense of like the relationship that happened, I saw it as something else.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it's going to lead to this. And so like I kept it, whatever. And, you know, whatever. I thought it was going to have a whole different connotation. And year and a half goes by, and I get a phone call that starts my journey in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all off of this one relationship that I was expecting a whole different outcome that leads to this whole journey in Florida.
Right.
And now, like, met my wife, met Vinny, met you, like, and it's like, had I not made that relationship, I wouldn't be here for sure. I'd be somewhere completely different,
Right.
because that one relationship opened the door to all of this.
Or I look at your whole life in that way.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so you get to Florida,
Yeah,
then you choose to be in this one corner of the office,
yeah,
talking to Vinny and Dr.
right.
Pastor
Yeah,
Crystal.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
what if you were just a mute?
yeah,
And
exactly.
you're like, oh, they don't know me. Of course
Yeah.
you don't know this. You have
Yeah.
to get to know them. Then Vinny moves on.
Right.
And so I know this guy who's an editor. Let's see if he'll do some
Yeah,
side work.
yeah,
And then everything. But it's like we're trying to tell God how it's going to be. I need
Right.
this. I want this. And it's like God is leading us on this journey of we don't know what's next.
yeah,
We can't tell God what to do, but we can't also close doors.
yeah,
Because who would have thought, you first meet Vinny,
yeah.
that in 2 years he's gonna be like, oh, I'm in West Virginia, come up.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, at that point too, like looking at everything, like I had so much opportunity that I could have said yes to in Florida. Like I
Right.
had so many relationships. Even now looking at it, it's like, wow, I think I had more relationships than I realized I had
Right.
there. And so it's like I could have stayed there easily, it could have been comfortable, but it's like this is where God's path was. And what's great is in coming here, I still now have all those relationships, and I still have great relationships where I'm able to go do some work here, do some consultation here, and it's like God had more for me here than he did in Florida, because
Right.
had I been there, I know the lifestyle I'd be living right now, and it would be never leaving one place, living and breathing 60 hours a week in one location,
Right.
and never being able to get out. Now it's like, oh wow, I get to travel, I get to help people, I get to consult, and it's like all these different things. And what's great is it all started with one little relationship that it didn't even I didn't understand the reach this person had.
Right.
I understood him to have a reach in a certain industry.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize the relationship he had through that industry,
Mm-hmm.
and through even actually in the relationship he had was something he had when he was not even really serving the Lord. And he had a relationship with, and it ended up sprouting into a relationship with a minister that ends up calling me.
Mm-hmm.
And had I not gotten into a relationship with that person, I would have never
And that's the whole thing, is that you don't know who they know, and you don't know when they're going to need you.
Yeah.
And if we choose to be quiet, man, we're leaving the big opportunity that God's trying to promote us. And it's like, he doesn't mail you the opportunity.
Right.
Here's your, resume.
Yep.
I want you to mail it into XYZ. It's like, no, it comes through communicating, networking, and letting God lead us. But if we're afraid, we'll never know.
Exactly.
So that's really our big takeaway, is that work on networking, work on communicating, see where God takes you, and don't minimize any relationship.
That's good.
Because some of the most, I wouldn't call them insignificant, but like people you wouldn't think have big roles, no huge role players. And you don't want to be like, well, you don't know anybody. So it's like their best friend might be the thing that you have. And so it's like, don't perceive, don't judge, but get out there, get your voice, get used to talking to people, find opportunities to talk. I always tell people, talk to the teller when you're checking out. Become almost tad obnoxious. How's your day? What's going on? Learn how to create that talent of just general talking, so you don't sound pushy, you don't sound aggressive. There's plenty of opportunities to just work on your approaches. So hopefully this helped you. Understanding every relationship has value. Not telling you to butt into conversations, but when the time is set, you don't know when there's a Joseph in the room that you'll be needed. But if you don't speak up, you will be forgotten about. So really want to encourage you guys, get out there, get people understanding what you do, even in environments you don't know yet. Get around people, ask questions. People love to talk about themselves. Just get out there and try new things. So bless you guys. See you next time.